John the Baptizer's purpose was to prepare the way for the Messiah, for Jesus. It was now time for John's disciples to turn and to follow the one who surpassed him, that is, who ranked before him because he was before him. And so John was to decrease while Jesus was to increase. In John chapter 1, 35 to 36, here we read, "The next day again, John was standing with two of his disciples. And he looked at Jesus as he walked by and said, 'Behold, the Lamb of God.'" Last week we noted how Jesus was noted by John as, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." And here he is with the two of his disciples, and Jesus is walking by, and he points them out and again says, "Behold, the Lamb of God." And as we noted last week, the word "behold" here is more than merely a glance or a quick scan. It comes from the Greek word oida, which according to Vine's Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words, means to know by perception. And in Strong's lexicon, he defines the word in this way: to perceive, notice, discern, discover, to turn the eyes, the mind, or the attention towards something. And to pay attention and to observe. And so John was saying, there he is. There he is. Jesus didn't come to John and steal away his disciples. As he walked by and as his teaching was presented, it provided the opportunity to gain the attention and for people to turn and to begin to follow him and to listen to his teaching. And that opportunity continued as the focus was drawn more fully toward him. But there must be a willingness to acknowledge Jesus for who he is and to be drawn to him. As John pointed to Jesus, he no doubt knew that he would lose these two disciples, but that was John's purpose. Jesus was the one to be followed. As John would later say in John 3:30, "He must increase, but I must decrease." John kept the greatest cause in mind. There was no room for jealousy on his part because he clearly knew what his mission was, and he kept his focus on that mission. As we noted last week, the reading from John 3:22 to 27, as there was discussion about the ritual, about John and his baptizing and ceremonial washings. But there, as some came to him and told him that people were turning to Jesus, there in verses 26 to 27, we read, and they came to John and said to him, "Rabbi, he who was with you across the Jordan, to whom you bore witness, look, he is baptizing, and all are going to him." And John answered, "A person cannot receive even one thing unless it is given him from heaven." Things were beginning to move in a right direction. Even as we go to John chapter 4, in verses 1 through 2, we read there, "Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee." The following of Jesus was increasing. More and more people were beginning to follow him, which was John's purpose. Unlike the Pharisaic perspective, where they had a problem in that they desired to have a following for themselves. They enjoyed their position. They did not like their place and their position being threatened. And in John chapter 11, following the raising of Lazarus from the dead and unable to deny the miracle that Jesus had done, in verses 47 to 48, there we read, "So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, 'What are we to do? For this man performs many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation.'" They saw what Jesus was doing and the following that Jesus was gaining as a threat to what they were thinking and how they perceived themselves and their position. Even as the church began following the ascension of Jesus back into heaven, there was still those who would desire to lead people away to develop their own following. Paul, as he spoke to the Ephesian elders in Acts 20 and verse 30, we read there where he says, "From among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things to draw away the disciples after them." Shouldn't be surprising then today that there were people who would want to draw disciples after themselves rather than pointing the attention to Jesus, where the attention needs to squarely rest. But John found joy in the departure. In John 3:29 that we noted before, the one who has the bride as the bridegroom, the friend of the bridegroom who stands and hears him, rejoices greatly at the bridegroom's voice. Therefore, this joy of mine is now complete. John rejoiced in those who were following Jesus. Think about the teacher who trains others and helps them to develop skills for what it is that they are to do, and perhaps with some sadness see their students depart the classroom, to depart from them, but the joy they have in seeing what they are going on to and what they are going to be accomplishing. John's goal was not to attach people to himself, but to Christ. And this joy was John's as he saw people turning and going to him. William Barclay writes this: "There is no harder task than to take the second place when once the first place was enjoyed." But once Jesus had emerged on the scene, John never had any other thought than to send men to him. We must also keep our focus fixed on the greater cause in trying to draw the attention to Jesus. And so these two turned to begin following. John 1, verses 37 to 39, we read the two disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. And Jesus turned and saw them following and said to them, "What are you seeking?" And they said to him, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" And he said to them, "Come, and you will see." So they came and saw where he was staying, and they stayed with him that day, for it was about the 10th hour. That would have been about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Jesus turned and met them where they were. And we have two questions here and an invitation. His question to them was, "What are you seeking?" And that's a good personal question for us to consider as well as we looked at Jesus. Why are we seeking Jesus? What is it that we're looking for in coming to him? Is it mere curiosity? Is it some kingdom position that we think that we're going to get? Or is it just humbly to find the truth and proper life direction and the salvation that he came to offer us? There is a promise attached to sincere seeking, as Jesus himself said in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 to 9, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks it will be open." Now we do need to be sure that we are seeking that which is right. In seeking Jesus, there is the need for openness to the truth that is associated with him. Preconceived expectations or ideas can keep us from seeing Jesus as we ought. This was the case with many of the Jewish leaders of that day. Jesus therefore noted them as blind in Matthew 23, verses 16 to 19, and also in John 9, 40 to 41, after he had given sight to that man in that chapter who had been born blind, who had been blind all of his life. What do we want? Why are we seeking Jesus? Is it material security, moral security, spiritual security that we are desiring? Their response to Jesus was, "Where are you staying?" That is the Greek abiding or dwelling or remaining. And they call him rabbi here, which means teacher. It was a respectful term for teachers. And John, writing to a Greek audience translated rabbi for his readers as teacher. And this signified, their question signified a deeper interest. There was a point of depth to their question to Jesus. They were not merely looking for a conversation on the side of the road. They were interested in the Lord's place. They were interested in where he was staying. To me, this seems to imply that there was a desire to spend a little bit more time with him and to be able to hear him, be able to learn from him. They wanted more of an attachment than just a passing thing. And that is what we need to have as well. Not to just meet along the roadway, not just for a little chat, but really have the opportunity and take advantage of the opportunity to get to really know who Jesus is and to learn from him, to look at his life and to see him as we ought to see him. Someone has said that the man who would be Jesus' disciple can never be satisfied with a passing word with Jesus. He wants to meet Jesus not as an acquaintance in the passing, but as a friend in his own house. Do we have an abiding interest in Jesus? Where is he abiding in connection with us today? In our heart, in our life, in our home? Is he abiding close with us every day? Jesus' invitation to them was, "Come and you will see." Those are words of a good teacher. You'll come and I'll show you. Not just tell you, but I will show you. I will demonstrate for you as well. Jesus accepted, as the teacher, acknowledged himself as the teacher, accepted them as learners. He opened the door for that further opportunity to learn from him. Well, what marks our seeing? How is our seeing? Are we seesawing, or have we come to see, to remain following Jesus? When we come and willingly follow, we begin to learn and to see many things. Are we seizing the opportunity to know Jesus more as we look into the Gospels and as we hear his teaching and we note who he truly is as the Son of God and as the Lamb that takes away the sin of the world? Well, as the scene goes on here, we see one of the two turns to tell and to introduce to Jesus. John 1:40-42. One of the two who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. He brought him to Jesus, and Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, the son of John. You shall be called Cephas," which means Peter. Here we have these two disciples who've been following John. They turn to follow Jesus. One is named Andrew. The other is not named. But Andrew, even as we're introduced to him even before we meet Peter as Simon Peter's brother. And I'll say more about that in just a moment. But here is this one that is unnamed. Who is this one that is unnamed? Could it be John, the apostle, who is writing this record? We find as we go through the Gospel of John, there are several occasions where John is clearly noting himself, but he is not naming himself. For example, in John chapter 13, verse 23, John 19:26, John 21, verse 7, and John 21 and verse 20. But also keep in mind what John, who was the brother of James, and then there was Peter and Andrew, remember what their occupations were. They four were fishermen. James and John were the sons of Zebedee. James and John were brothers. And Peter and Andrew were brothers and fishermen. But in Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 to 22, we see all four of these being called to follow Jesus on the same beach within moments of the calling of them. They are all called together, and Jesus gives them that opportunity to not just be fishermen, but fishers of men. John Barclay notes, it may very well be that he finishes this way in talking about it was the 10th hour, because he was one of the two himself. He could tell you the hour of the day, the very stone of the road he was standing on when he met Jesus. At 4 o'clock on a spring afternoon in Galilee, life became a new thing for John. When a man really meets Christ, he will no more forget the day and hour than he will forget the day of his birth. It marks the dividing line between the line when he did not know and the time when he came to know Jesus Christ. And I like that, the way that he expresses that there. So this could very well be John who was there with Andrew at that time. The Hebrew, again, is explained here to John, the Apostle's Greek readers. The Messiah, which means Christ. Both the Hebrew and Greek words for meaning anointed. But here we find in Andrew another who is willing to take second place. Just like John the baptizer. Before we meet Peter, Andrew is noted as his brother. You know, he was not even a part of that inner circle that we see when Jesus took not Andrew, but Peter, James, and John in when Jairus' daughter was raised in Luke 8:51. And it was Peter, James, and John that Jesus took up on the mount where he was transfigured in Matthew 17, verse 1. Those three are named there. Andrew, though he was Peter's brother, is not one of those three. And in Matthew 26:36, again there it is Peter, James, and John who go further into the Garden of Gethsemane with Jesus when he is going to pray, and they tell him to keep watch. We also find that in Matthew 26:36 and Mark 14 and verse 33. Jesus saw his disciples, but like John, let me back up here a little bit. We become more familiar with Peter than we do with John, but that didn't mean that than we do with Andrew. But that didn't mean that Andrew was not significant. Though Peter and Andrew may not have had the same disposition, we see Peter so much out front there, especially there even on the day of Pentecost. But as speaking to the multitude there, but Andrew was significant as right here we see him one-on-one bringing his brother Peter to Jesus. Also in John chapter 6 and verses 8 through 9, it is Andrew that brings the boy with his lunch to Jesus when Jesus feeds the 5,000. And then in John chapter 12, verse 20 to 22, it is Andrew and Philip together who go and tell Jesus about these Greeks that wanted to meet with him. As we consider Peter here, who is noted, we see that Peter is acknowledged by the Lord as he looks at what Peter is going to be. Petros and Peter, as we think about those terms. In Matthew 16, verses 13 to 19, we read there where Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, and he asked the disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets? And he said to them, But who do you say I am? And Simon Peter replied, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, that is Petros, and it is masculine. You are Peter, and on this rock, that is Petra, which is feminine, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Petros stands for the proper name of Peter here. It is Peter, and which referred to a rock or a stone. Petra denotes a rock or cliff or ledge, or a projecting rock, crag, rocky ground, or a rock, a large stone. This is according to Strong's Greek lexicon. And we can see that the church was founded upon something much bigger than Peter, as there is this contrast between Petros being masculine, but Petra being feminine. And it's on this, the truth of who Jesus is, the statement that Peter made, based on who Jesus is, that the church was built up. And though Peter had the keys, was given the keys, and opened the door to that kingdom on the day of Pentecost as he spoke to those who, the 3,000 that ultimately were baptized on that day. But the rock-solid truth of Jesus is what needs to be acknowledged. And this is how John the Apostle began trying to focus on the deity of Jesus in this gospel. And John pointed to him as the Lamb. Jesus needs to be recognized as the Son of God and as our Savior, as the Messiah. The rock-solid truth of Jesus must be acknowledged. As Matthew 16:16 here, as Simon had said, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And John 20:21, remember where John the Apostle wrote, But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And as Paul was writing to the church at Corinth, in 1 Corinthians 3:10-11, there he says, According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Jesus is the foundation of the church. It is built up upon that, and Jesus needs to be recognized for who he is. Though Peter was given the keys to the kingdom and opened up that door, the church was built on Christ. It is not Peter's church, it is Christ's church that we are a part of. Our hope of salvation rests solidly with Jesus as the Christ, the Son of the living God. Our Lord's invitation still stands for those who would seek him. As Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28-30, Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus, just like with these two, bids us, come and you will see. Come and you will learn. Come and you will find the blessings that I came to provide both presently and eternally. Are we willing to accept that invitation and come to him so that we can see as we ought to see? To turn away from blindness of preconceived ideas and the ideologies of this world, and to have the enlightenment of who Jesus truly is as the light of the world. Let us come so that we will see.